The most underreported, underdiscussed, yet biggest story happening in Kansas City, and it needs to be getting more attention. And that is, who is going to be the next city manager in this town? They had final round interviews late last week, and they did not go well. Hope you're doing well. Happy Monday. I'm not trying to bring you the bad news as we kick off a week here, but I had a lot of time over the weekend to listen to these interviews of these finalists and these candidates. And they are not exactly knocking it out of the park. I took a trip to Boston over the weekend, not even 48 hours, to visit my brother. I had layovers in St. Louis both ways. I'll talk about that airport here coming up in a few minutes. What a mess.
Please do.
I will. Don't worry. But I had time to sit there on my phone and listen to the interviews of Kimiko Gilmore, who is right now the interim city manager in Kansas City. Mario Vasquez. I keep wanting to call this guy Mario Lopez, but he's Mario Vasquez. And then Pat Klein. They all are working for or have worked for the city of Kansas City, Missouri at one point or another. And they're your three finalists for this job. So remember last week when we had the mayor on Thursday, he talked about the interviews. They would be airing on YouTube. And let's be honest, no one watches this stuff, okay? I just watch it after the fact because it's part of the job. Duty calls. And it is an incredibly important hire. Remember, Brian Platt got canned over that, bizarre mistrusting the media story that turned out in a lawsuit from an employee who was looking for revenge. And we talked about that ad nauseum over the last couple of months. So now you got a World Cup coming next year. You got a city that's, let's be honest, facing a lot of issues. And the city manager plays a big part in that. Now, they don't run the police department, but listen, they make sure your trash is picked up. They make sure your roads are cleaned. They're a big role in economic development, which will move the city forward. So this is a big job. They elected to keep this thing internal because, well, the reality is this city council is done in a couple of years. And if the new mayor wants to move on with a new city manager, he or she will have the right to do that one day. So they rightfully didn't want to open this thing up to a big national search. They wanted to keep it internal and keep the process moving. The problem is the front runner in the clubhouse is Kimiko Gilmore. And if you watch that interview from late last week, it is Kamala Harris-esque with the word salads. Now, I didn't think any of them knocked it out of the park. But if this is your front runner in the clubhouse, it's not a good sign. It is not a good sign for the city when the person who many on the council are lobbying for to be the next city manager is talking about homelessness in Kansas City and called the homeless. Remember when we were dealing with this during and after COVID, when we were putting homeless people into hotels in and around Kansas City? Well, the interim city manager, who is the leader right now in the clubhouse, called that a success.
So once I came back to the city as assistant city manager and deputy city manager, one of the areas that I had to cover was houselessness. And that's
a red flag right there, all right? It's houselessness. We went from vagrants to homeless to, now we keep making up a new iteration of the word. Okay, but anyway, I can get past that. I can get past it. All right, I'll survive. I'll make it.
It was a ride that I will never ever forget, because we as staff and the community and some in the community had come together and had a plan for how to address houselessness. We were in COVID at one point, and there were hotels involved, and we housed people for the entire summer, and that was a win.
No. That was not a win. That wasn't. Don't forget, when that was going on, 2021, remember the city spent millions of dollars putting homeless people into hotels. Many of them were actually up in the Northland. What happened? The crime around these motels and hotels skyrocketed. That was not a win.
Prom weekend or something,
You had catalytic converters getting stolen left and right. There was nothing about that was a win. Nothing. It cost millions of dollars. Now, the city was living high in the hog, as were all cities, because, well, COVID money was here. You had, of course, the ridiculous woke fallout from 2020, where there was this belief that, we're just going to spend government money on putting people in hotels for 30 days. And amazingly, it accomplished absolutely nothing. Yeah, because that's not the problem. The problem is deeper than putting a roof over somebody's head, right? There are oftentimes mental health issues. There are long-term, deep-seated issues that these individuals are obviously dealing with. And just saying we're going to fill up a hotel or a motel for 30 days does nothing but Band-Aid a massive wound that needs serious surgery. That's all you're doing. So anytime I'm sitting there in the St. Louis airport yesterday, and I'm, minding my own business, and I'm sure the people around me saw me jump out of my seat and start talking to myself because I heard that, and I'm like, what? I probably looked like one of the crazy homeless people up in the Northland 3 years ago in the hotels. I'm talking to myself, what are you saying that was a massive win? Nothing about that was a win. And I don't want to say any line is disqualifying for any one person for the city manager job, but I'll tell you right now, you cannot have somebody who is saying that was a successful venture for Kansas City, Missouri, John. It's bizarre.
Houselessness, have we used that word, right?
Yes.
With two prefixes or
Yes.
suffixes?
Yes.
I don't know if that counts on Wheel of Fortune or anything. You might have to watch out.
Well, we could maybe...
But it's not an issue about houses, real quick. I'll interject. Anybody building homes in Kansas City will say, hey, I'll build you a home. Just remove these ridiculous restrictions. But that's a sidebar conversation.
Well, you're right about that, too. That's something that when we did our Politics in a Pint last time with Mayor Lucas about, 2 years ago now, we had multiple people from that community say, hey, the problem with Kansas City and its housing issue is that the red tape is absurd. It takes forever to get through City Hall. And on top of that, the amount of regulations we have to deal with, far more than Overland Park, Lee Summit, and so many other places around Kansas City. So that's another one of the issues when it comes to the homeless crisis that Kansas City is facing.
I would think any earnest attempt to rectify that situation would include that.
Yeah, you would think so. So I hear some of this interview for Kimiko Gilmore, and I'm like, okay, this is not starting off well. Then I see this question or hear this question. This was earlier in the interview, so I was just getting kind of worked up. What's the most significant challenge Kansas City is facing?
Will be the most significant challenge as city manager for our city.
That's a good question and a loaded question and a question that can go in a lot of different ways.
Okay. Oh, dang it. I hit the wrong button. I'm going to have to play that again. That is the most obvious question to ask a city manager in an interview. Hey, what's the most important issue facing this city? Well, that's a loaded question and an important question, and it can go in a lot of different ways. All right, Kamala, give me the answer. Please. I just need an answer here. It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day. That's not a suitable answer here. I don't need the word salad. What is the issue? Come on.
Will be the most significant challenge as city manager for our city.
That's a good question and a loaded question and a question that can go in a lot of different ways. And so I just want to start with just the basics. One of the challenges that we are having right now as the city is retaining our workforce or even attracting a workforce. And in positions like, the entry-level positions, maintenance mechanics. At the convention and entertainment facilities, since I was appointed as executive director, we have had at least 13 maintenance mechanics positions open. And we had a huge career fair. And everyone, I think Public Works got 200 people, and all of these other water had a lot of folks. But we hired one person, and that is not acceptable. So we have to figure out how we are going to attract the workforce and retain the workforce that we need to get the job done. Now, we still get the job done, but I want our staff to be able to work smarter and not harder.
What? The most pressing issue is you had a bad job fair? So what's the structural analysis of that? Is it a compensation issue? Is it a engagement issue? Is it an issue with the city? Is it an issue with the department? I mean, what's the problem? You're in the interim role. That's Kimiko Gilmore, who is probably the front runner to be the next city manager. But you ask, what is the biggest and most significant challenge as city manager for the city? And frankly, you get a bunch of word salad gobbledygook that ends up talking about a job fair where one person was hired. Well, why did that happen? And then in that comment, you see, so we have to figure out how we're going to attract the workforce and retain the workforce. I mean, that's kind of your job, to answer why you have not been able to attract the workforce and what you're going to do to bring in an improved workforce and a larger workforce. Not to say we've got to analyze it. I mean, that's literally your job. That's why you're being hired. So I listen, I don't have a dog in the fight. I really don't. I mean, I watched the interviews with, and I don't think this guy Patrick Klein has a shot. Apparently he's not all that loved, to put it politely. Mario Lopez Vasquez, I'm hearing that people are liking him more and more. He's better one-on-one. I watched his interview. He looked really nervous. He had some decent answers, but he looked and came across really nervous. And Kimiko Gilmore is the one who many at City Hall are lobbying for to get the job. She's the interim person right now. But I'm sorry, based on what I'm hearing, I mean, are you going to feel like this city's in a great spot going into a World Cup next year with some of these answers you're hearing? I don't know how you could. So I don't know who the person's going to be. Like I said, I'm hearing a lot of shift towards Vasquez behind the scenes internally, and maybe that comes to fruition. But I also know that the deck is stacked in favor of Gilmore. And if she gets the job, I will wish her and want her to do the best job that she can for Kansas City, because that's ultimately what this is about, doing a great job on behalf of this city. It's nothing personal, but I'm just telling you, because I know nobody listens to these interviews. And frankly, if I was not traveling this weekend, I'm not sure I would have listened to these interviews. But I had some time on my hands, and I said, you know what? I'll pull up these city manager interviews from late last week here in Kansas City, and I'm glad I did. I am glad I did, because I guarantee you most people in Kansas City media didn't watch 7 seconds of these interviews because they're long, they're drawn out, they're largely boring, but they will play an enormous role in who ends up being in charge in this town for the foreseeable future. So as this, and I'm going to invite all three people on the show. I also have heard that City Communications has been stacking the deck towards one person. I will report back on that this week after I start reaching out to get some of these folks on the show as we head down the home stretch. 913-408-7957. I will give you an analysis of our regional airports and something that needs to happen as soon as possible. It is my message to the major airlines in and around Kansas City and around the country, coming up on a Monday morning on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio, and streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. A little Cinco de Mayo music there, Mark. Nice job there, buddy. Good morning. 6:23. Great to have you here on KCMO. We just got done talking about city manager hiring, which right now is down to 3 finalists inside of Kansas City. Kimiko Gilmore is the interim candidate. They all interviewed late last week. I listened to those interviews as I was traveling over the weekend to and from Boston, caught a Red Sox game, stopped by Harvard, and I stopped by. I looked for the anti-Semitism protests, but couldn't find them. Either way, Tim's in Kansas City. What's up, Tim? You're on KCMO. Go ahead, buddy.
Hello?
Hey, Tim, what's going on, man? Go ahead.
Hey, yeah, I just wanted to comment on the thing you said about Kimiko and her answer for the one question that was asked about the problem with the city. And I work in the aviation department at the Kansas City Airport, or the main airport, and we can't get anybody, and we need people really bad. I mean, they opened up the new terminal. They have all this extra area that we have to take care of. I work in field maintenance, and we are having a hell of a time trying to find anybody that wants to even apply for a job. They, I think the biggest hindrance for that is you have to live in the city limits. And nobody wants to relocate to Kansas City, especially if you live in one of the small towns around here. I mean, God, we got crime and everything else, and the politics are terrible. And so why would people want to move to Kansas City, just to work there? And then again, they don't pay very good either. So it's they need to, pay us better. So, I mean, it's like
yeah, well, Tim, you should have answered the question for her. I mean, let's be honest. You could have said, listen, but here's the thing. The city government does not want to encourage, the cops got away with it, but they do not want to encourage people to be able to live outside of Kansas City and then work for Kansas City, Missouri, because that helps their tax base. It helps them politically. But you're right. That would go a long way. Just an easy step number one.
Well, there's a shortage of people all over. Nobody wants to work for the wages that they pay. I mean, the only reason I'm here is mostly for the benefits.
Yeah.
And so, it's like they're shooting themselves in the foot because we really need to get rid of that city requirement.
I agree. I agree.
It's the worst thing.
Tim, thank you, buddy. Hang tight today, all right?
All right.
I appreciate you, man. Yeah. That's good stuff out of Tim, who works up there at the airport, and I appreciate him sharing that. Here's the problem. You can't get hired as city manager if you say we should drop the residency requirement. You just can't. But she could have said what Tim said there. We got to have more competitive pay. We got openings all over town. And if we are going to require people to live here, to work here, then we got to give them some incentive. If you've got a mortgage right now, why are you going to leave from outside of Kansas City limits to come inside of Kansas City limits? Now, if you're renting, you're single, fine. But if you've got kids in school, even if you're not a homeowner, picking up and moving back into Kansas City to then go work at the airport, to Tim's point, not a lot of people are going to be in line to do that in a tight job market. Not going to happen. Now, speaking of the airport, I was up there Friday and then again yesterday, went to visit my brother in Boston, caught a Red Sox game, and had a great time. Transferred both ways in St. Louis because there were more flights from St. Louis to Boston, obviously, than Kansas City. And I don't know why, but it's past time with our new airport for all of these major airlines, Delta, Southwest, American, United, go down the list, to start using Kansas City for more of their connecting flights than St. Louis, because the St. Louis airport is dingy, it's aged, it's washed up, it's tight. The workers, frankly, are not pleasant at all in St. Louis. I mean, there's no redeeming qualities about that airport, John. And if I'm one of these airlines, I am looking to do more connecting flights in and out of our airport than using that airport.
Planes, trains, and automobiles. Steve Martin trying to rent the vehicle and climb over that overpass. That's Lambert.
Yeah. I was sitting there. I sat there for 4 hours yesterday. My flight got delayed by 2 hours coming back. I'm like, this place sucks. I'm sorry. It's terrible. There's no redeeming qualities to the St. Louis airport. It's like they're doing you a favor as you sit there as the customer for the better part of, 4 hours. So if I could change one thing about the airline industry, you guys got to start using Kansas City as more of your hub. We've got the room, as I understand it. They built it out for some room. And the food options are better. The people are nicer. Amenities are better. There's more space. Everything that you would want is better at our airport than the St. Louis airport. What are we going to do without a $200,000 grant for Powell Gardens in Kingsville, Missouri, in the Kansas City region? What are we going to do, and how are we going to make it? I know you're sitting there and you're like, well, we're $36 trillion in debt. I mean, it's like in your home. If you are running a deficit every month in your house, I'm sorry, but you can't eat out 5 times a week. I mean, you can, but eventually you're going to find yourself in a lot of credit card debt, and you're going to have to pay it back. I know there are those who think that our $36 trillion in debt is just like a made-up number that doesn't really matter and there's no impact on me today, so why do I care? But eventually, the chicken will come home to roost. And that's why you've got people like Trump and Elon and so many others with DOGE who are serious, thank goodness, for the first time in a long time, about caring about the issue. But that doesn't stop your local media here in Kansas City on a Monday morning from trying to do everything it can to drum up, I don't want to use the word hate, but let's just say animosity towards those who are trying to be responsible with our money. It's not even our money anymore at this point. It's our grandkids' money. So Woke 41 does a piece, Powell Gardens to pause certain programs after loss of federal grant. Says here that Powell Gardens was awarded a $217,000 grant from the Institute of Museum and Library Services, expected to be dispersed over 2 years. After 1 year of funding, the grant has been pulled. And that's, of course, because there is just cutting going on around the federal government. Here's how Woke 41 reported this over the weekend.
So the grant paid for things like HR support, safety training, community outreach, behind-the-scenes work that visitors don't see. But CEO Cody Jolliffe says visitors will still notice changes. So fewer staff, maybe fewer programs, special events. A lot of the work that they say makes Powell Gardens visitor ready.
A lot of the things that makes a cultural organization great that people don't see that has to happen every day. So it's not the paint, it's not the beautiful flowers, it's the things that are harder to get funded.
Another problem is that Powell Gardens' budget is set years in advance. So without those federal dollars, they expect they'll have to cut back on programs that the grant was supposed to fund. And when I spoke to those leaders there, they said they really right now just want people to know how this is impacting, know that they need the community's help. Absolutely. And really the ways that they'll see this hurt them.
Oh, really? Okay. I mean, in a perfect world, sure, Powell Gardens would, I suppose, have every dollar it would like from grant monies. But we don't have it. We don't. And I don't think that this level of local propaganda is going to work to make people say, you know what? I was on board with DOGE, but once they went after that $200,000 grant against Powell Gardens, I'm out. I'm done. This is it. This is where I put my foot down and I say enough is enough.
I'm getting pissed now.
That's right. You went after Powell Gardens. You got something else coming for you, Elon. Come on, please. I mean,
come on, man.
Even Biden's like, you got to be kidding me with this. So you heard from Cody Jolliffe there, CEO of Powell Gardens. And this quote from Sharon Ramsey, Director of Development for Powell Gardens, did not make the Woke 41 package, but it was in the article. And her quote reads as follows. A lot of people think that we receive public funding, but we do not receive any tax dollars. So we rely solely on dollars coming from admissions, membership, and from donations from individuals and grants that we have applied for. Excuse me. What do you think grant money is? That is just a lie. I mean, at the very best, if you want to be generous and not call it a lie, that is at the very best not being honest. Oh, we don't receive tax dollars. We don't get public funding. We just get grant money that we applied for, which is government money, which is our money from the taxpayer. I mean, please, at least tell me why this is really important, why we should fund this. Like, I don't mind that. Everyone should advocate for their organization. I get that. Like, I really do. But then to have the director of development come out at Powell Gardens here and say, like, oh, we don't get taxpayer dollars. We just apply for grants, which is taxpayer dollars, is just disingenuous. I mean, come on. Don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining with something like that. That was where I said to myself, you know, I can let it slide. I'm cool with it. I understand you want to lobby for your organization to have as much money as possible, but that's where you got to draw the line. And frankly, your local news should do a much better job calling that out for what it is. And be like, well, explain to me why you getting grant money is all that different from taxpayer dollars, because it's basically one and the same. And we all know that. Jim's out east. Go ahead, Jim. You're on KCMO. What's up, buddy?
Well, Pete, did I hear you right that they've already received half of it? So we're not looking at $200,000 being cut. We're only to $105,000 or so.
Yeah, true. It's $217,000 over 2 years. And they got 1 year of funding. So they got, like you said, about, $108,000, give or take.
So we're not looking at $200,000 cut.
Correct. Good point. Excellent early morning Monday analysis there, Jim. Nice job, buddy.
All right, Pete.
Hey,
have a good day.
You got it, bro. Well done. That's outstanding. You're right about that. So this is the kind of stuff that local media is driving home to try to create a political narrative that doesn't really exist. And please tell me the people who are going to, be outraged over Powell Gardens, ask them how many times they've been there. I mean, I have not been there once in my life. Going on 8 years now. Mark, you've been here? You've been there before, Mark, Powell Gardens?
I have not.
Okay. John?
65 years and counting.
Okay.
I'm on Facebook. I marked myself safe from DOGE cuts at Powell Gardens.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you very much. That's kind of what I wanted to know. And it's not that I want anybody to lose a job. I don't. But, I mean, if this is the stretch that your local media is trying to reach for, to be like, go against Elon and go against DOGE, I don't think it's going to work the way you think it's going to work. Okay? I really don't. The text line, 913-408-7957. That's also where you can find us on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. Pete, there is no way that Powell Gardens could ever fund itself through just admissions. They would have to get an enormous amount on donations. Here's the thing. You just need one big donor, theoretically, right, to justify keeping Powell Gardens going. That's what you would need. I mean, same thing with PBS, NPR. And I guarantee you, just because of the political climate we find ourselves in out of spite, you could probably find some rich lefty to write that $100,000 check for Powell Gardens in a heartbeat. I guarantee you that person exists. If nothing else, to spite Elon. Now, will it work for the long haul? I don't know. But I guarantee you could find that donor right now. And then you would save the taxpayer money, and then Powell Gardens could stay open. Great. That makes all the sense in the world. But when it comes to how your media is covering this stuff, just know it is wildly disingenuous, whether it's on the national level or right here in Kansas City. 0 for 3 on this show on Powell Gardens. And you tell me, I'm not seeing any texts saying that some of you are, staples there. I didn't think so. Pete, if you chaperone one of your girls' school field trips, you'll go to Powell Gardens. All right, great. I look forward to it one day. Mark, none of your girls went to Powell Gardens yet?
No, not if you live on the Kansas side.
Yeah, maybe they'll go down to the Johnson County Botanical.
Yeah, we went to the Deanna Rose Farmstead.
Oh, that's always a good trip. Mm-hmm. And here's the thing. I've been there. Our girls have been there multiple times on their own because we see value in it. They like the animals. They like to feed the animals, the whole thing, right? How many times can I look at butterflies? Just saying. That's just me. Can you really damage Social Security any more than it already is? I mean, the thing's going to be insolvent, according to estimations, in the next decade or so. So I'm just curious on a Monday morning, how much worse can it really get? This was a special to the Kansas City Star yesterday by a guy named Max Sloan. I mean, I'm going to assume Mac's a guy. I guess you can't be too certain these days, especially when you're running a special for the Kansas City Star. But anyway, Mac writes a piece here, headline, quote, "I'm a KC Social Security worker. DOGE has already damaged the program's future." Bro, the program's future has been damaged for decades. That's the problem with it. Okay? It's going to be insolvent. It is a Ponzi scheme at its very core. And if I could opt out of it today at 36, I would in a heartbeat. I would probably give up everything I put in to be done with this garbage program. That's me. Now, if you're close to retirement, that should not be you. But I would give up the tens of thousands of dollars that I put into the program to be done with it and never have another penny taken out of my paycheck for Social Security if I could do it today. I'm telling you, if you actually go into your pay stub, and no one does it anymore, but look at your pay stub and look at how much is taken out for Social Security each and every paycheck. And you'll be like, wait, I could have that much more. And if I invest it myself, I would have 10x what Social Security is going to promise me, depending on how long I live anyway. I'll sign up for that, but neither here nor there. Mac Sloan goes on the right for the Star. Since 1935, the Social Security Administration has provided the American people financial protection for millions of citizens, created on the promise that the most vulnerable people in our society should be able to maintain a basic standard of living. However, with the re-election of Donald Trump and the move fast and break things approach that Elon Musk and his Department of Government Efficiency have been taking to our services and staff, the stability of the program is in doubt. So notice how this article gets framed here in the Star. The article gets framed in as, without us, without the 57,000 workers at Social Security, you're screwed. See, that's why we should all want to be done with it. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't say this is the government providing a basic standard of living for all Americans as they get older, but then say, without the workers, without us, without the big bureaucracy, you're screwed. This is why I want to get rid of you clowns. This is why I want nothing to do with you. Because I do not want to sit here, and none of us should want to sit here and say, boy, I hope the government can figure it out so I can grow old and not have to be poor and not be out on the streets and have a roof over my head, because without the government, we just don't have a chance. This is the kind of narcissism that too many bureaucrats have. You need us. Meantime, they can't function without our money. They can't. It's just a fact. The government doesn't have any money. It operates off of our money. But then they want to act like you're lucky to have us. It's like, hold on here, chumps. No. You got a job because of us, okay? You got a job because of the private sector. Stop acting like you're doing me a favor here. As a technician with Social Security, writes Mac, I have seen firsthand the damage done to the agency. And so have many of my colleagues. Since DOGE, computer system issues have plagued us as our information technology budgets have been slashed. I will pump the brakes there as well. We have some of the smartest computer people on the planet involved with DOGE, starting with maybe the Einstein of our generation in Elon Musk. And now we've got the bureaucrats being like, our computers don't work. Help me with my computer. These guys like Elon Musk and these, in many cases, billionaires who have built incredible companies who are computer whizzes. They're the problem with your computer systems not functioning properly. Maybe because they're trying to make your computer systems operate in the 21st century, John.
You know how I know he's lying? He's saying he's got computer problems at the government that started with DOGE. Liar.
That's right.
How dare you?
Understaffing across the board has led to case backlogs going back years with no end in sight. Beneficiaries are forced to wait for hours on hold or a callback for even basic services such as a bank or address update. And if they even have to manage to get one of the wonderful people who staff our teleservice centers, they may be forced to wait weeks or months to get an appointment to go into their local field office to prove their identity, even to make this one simple change. Our regional offices have been reduced in Kansas City, eliminating crucial support to our field offices and our beneficiaries. Okay. If you've experienced that, the phones are open at 913-408-7957. I'm all ears. I'd love to hear from you on that front. Something tells me that if that was happening, we would have heard about it before the Social Security worker writes about it to the Kansas City Star. But maybe that's me being naive.
Most of the callers will just tell you that's business as usual.
Well, yes, that's
right?
True as well. That's true as well. Whether it's the VA, Social Security, that's what we call dealing with the government. That's what we call that. So it's very obvious what's going on here. Now, that being said, there is an update here from DOGE. DOGE wants to eliminate about 7,000 jobs from the Social Security Administration. It's about 10, 11% of the workforce. Not a huge number. And I guarantee you that you could cut every government agency by give or take 10% and find efficiencies in every one of these bureaucracies. And if they could do it tomorrow, I would tell them to do it tomorrow. And I hope that they get there with Social Security. But you understand what's really going on here is bureaucrats trying to save bureaucrats. And that's, whatever. That's if you want your friend to still have a job, I get it. I would want my buddy to have a job too. But when you have a government and a country that's $36 trillion in debt, I'm sorry, you find efficiencies. That's what businesses do in the private sector. And the government has not been held accountable on that front for going on 35 years, at least, if not longer. So now you actually have people who want to go out there and try to fix it. And we get the sob story. And, of course, the Star will publish that in a heartbeat because they largely agree with this assessment. But it's not something that I don't think most people are going to buy and most people are going to be super sympathetic on. Because you know and I know, if there were millions of Social Security recipients who are not getting their checks, whether it's in Kansas City or just around the country, that would be a headline story, right? That would be a story that all of media would be just beating to death ad nauseum. It's not happening. So instead, what you get is the Social Security worker who does the fear-mongering. Oh, this could be happening. This might be coming. Now, what is DOGE actually doing? You might have missed this on Friday. The Trump administration asked the Supreme Court on Friday to clear the way for DOGE to access Social Security systems. Of course, as they try to clean up the operation. So this comes after a judge in Maryland restricted DOGE's access to Social Security under federal privacy laws. Now the administration is saying, they're going to the Supreme Court and saying, can DOGE get this access to try to improve Social Security? Okay, I would give it to them in a heartbeat. That's me. But I also know this much. The people who are like, I would never give Elon and DOGE all of my information, but will gladly put their Social Security number into their laptop for their sixth credit card that they're applying for. Come on. We willingly put our information onto our computers for the most nonsensical things, not having any idea who's able to access it. But now, we can't let this guy Elon have our Social Security numbers. Sorry, he's the richest man in the world. He's not interested in your grandma's $1,300 check.
I'm advocating here. I had a caller on their way to work at Social Security, had noted that it's her second career, used to work in private sector, and immediately noticed the ridiculous inefficiencies. Using an antiquated system, like the Doogie Howser thing when you start typing in the letters just appear, whatever that's called. She's like, we're on an old system. I have to use my iPhone to calculate for people. She's using her phone.
Wow.
These programs are so outdated. So
yeah, we wouldn't want the guy who founded Tesla. We wouldn't want the guy who, is one of the great entrepreneurs of our generation potentially helping the Social Security Department fix a system like that. Come on.
An employee with private experience moving over to the government immediately sees these things.
Yeah. And I guarantee you that there's a lot of folks like her out there. So I know she probably didn't want to go on the air to protect her identity, which I appreciate, but I'm glad she shared it with you, John. Give these DOGE guys what they need to help clean up the government inefficiencies, because we've got potentially just one shot at this. And the momentum is there, and it's got to happen now. Did you see the latest attack by the Kansas City Star at the men and women of the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department? They really can't help themselves. These losers are just something else. And I want to say something else, but I don't want Mark to hit the dump button at 8:52 on a Monday, so I will just use the word losers. So, of course, we've all been mourning the loss of Kansas City firefighter and paramedic Graham Hoffman. He was laid to rest on Friday. So this came after, of course, there was a woman on the highway, 152 highway, 2 weekends ago. A call comes in that she's basically wandering the road. Police show up. Then the paramedics show up because she's got, a cut on her hand. And the woman ends up killing Graham Hoffman as he is working as a paramedic with this woman who also had been, of course, arrested a week prior. Don't forget, she was arrested a week prior and was let out on what appears to be a fairly low bond. Now, that's been debated back and forth. We'll save that for another time. But you have a family that obviously lost a 29-year-old, and it's an absolute tragedy. So the Kansas City Star figures, well, there's got to be a way we can blame the cops for this, right? Editorial over the weekend, yesterday morning, KC police knew ambulance stabbing suspect was dangerous. Could she have been stopped? They go on the note here. While it's almost a given that we immediately want to assign blame, in this case, everyone must exert patience or exercise patience as city officials sort out what, if anything, went wrong. The public-facing approach must continue. City officials must analyze the factors that led to Hoffman's death with a fine-tooth comb and present those findings to the public in a timely manner. So as they say, hey, we got to exercise caution here. Let's also figure out a way to blame the cops, writes the Kansas City Star. They go on the note here, after the officer noticed a laceration in Basel, the woman's hand, he summoned an ambulance. Court records indicate. Later, the officer offered to take Basel home, but she declined. She then voluntarily agreed to be taken to the hospital by Graham Hoffman and his partner. The officer followed in the police vehicle. Basel and Hoffman were alone in the patient area of the ambulance when she stabbed him, according to court records. In documents we read, there's no indication the officer involved searched or performed a pat-down on Basel to see if she was armed with a weapon. She was not a criminal suspect, Kansas City police have said, so there was no reason to assume the worst. But she was considered dangerous by the police because she bit the arm of an off-duty Platte City officer in the Northland back on April 23rd. What the officer knew about this important information is a question police have yet to answer. Officials did tell us the department is reviewing the incident to determine if anything needs to be addressed. Okay, so right there, the Kansas City Star admits that really they don't know anything. The Kansas City Star notes that in documents, there's no indication the officer searched or performed a pat-down. Well, the woman was not under arrest. She was not a criminal suspect. So here's how this would have worked, all right? You know and I know. She's not under arrest. The police didn't have any authority to search her. And I guarantee you, had they searched this woman, you and I know what the Kansas City Star would have done. Kansas City police racially profile black woman, and they search an uncharged black woman, and nothing comes of it, but we got lawsuits on our hands. We got the Kansas City Star coming after the Kansas City police. Just be straight. You and I both know that that's exactly how this would have gone down. If nothing comes out of this story, but they're, patting this woman down or they're searching her when she's not under arrest, they would have played the race card. They would have said, this is the Kansas City cops being incompetent. This is them being racist. This is exactly what they would have done. Exactly what they would have done. So shame on them, but it's par for the course. Now, speaking of racism, did you know that tariffs are racist as well? Yes, let's roll this clip, ABC in Chicago, from over the weekend.
Some economists say tariffs will have a particularly negative impact on black households and small businesses in communities of color.
I think the risk is real.
But do not fear. That's the message from Pastor Raymond Thomas, co-founder and dean at the Joseph School of Business. While teaching practical business solutions in a faith-based environment, the Christian Business School has created its own partner network by trying to help insulate small businesses in black and brown neighborhoods from the tariff shock and economic uncertainty.
Because of our international presence, right, we now have opportunity to create platforms like we have what we call a global partner network, again, where we can develop relationships, again, in Nigeria, in Tanzania, in South Africa, where we can begin to look at other channels for supply and for distribution.
So why would tariffs impact a small business owned by a black person more than a small business owned by a white person or an Asian person? I am so confused as to how any of this actually works because every business is different. Every business operates differently, obviously uses different goods and services and parts and things like that may have some tariff impact, some may not. It does not make any sense. And if you actually want to have the conversation on who gets impacted the most by political decisions, well, how about the fact that inflation, which impacts everybody, is far more likely to have an impact on those at the lower end of the socioeconomic ladder, which are more likely to be people of color. But something tells me that was not a package that they probably reported on over the last 4 years. But I might be wrong on that. I might be wrong. Well, Mayor Lucas is trying to drum up some enthusiasm for this, but I promise you it's not going to work. That's why we've got the highlights or the lowlights for you here on KCMO. 9 o'clock hour, Keatsman's 1 hour away. So Quentin Lucas 1 hour ago put this up on X. Quote, "We want to make sure you know what we're doing at the city. So we held our recent city manager interviews in a public hearing and streamed live on Fountain City TV. You can catch all the recorded interviews at full length on YouTube. Enjoy," he says. Very Trump-esque. The one word, enjoy, exclamation point. This tweet from the mayor got 1 retweet and 5 likes. No one watched it. No one will watch it. And I just happened to watch some of these over the weekend as I was traveling and spent 4 hours, and that's 4 hours too many, in the St. Louis airport yesterday. So I'm listening to these YouTube interviews that were done late last week, and the mayor mentioned this on his Thursday show or his Thursday appearance here on KCMO, that these interviews with these 3 finalists for the next city manager would be happening. And no one watches this stuff. I mean, it's like watching paint dry. But I figured, hey, I got some time to kill here. As a duty to KCMO listeners, I'll take a listen and see what I find. And they were all pretty bad in different ways. You have these 3 finalists who are all internal candidates. You've got Kimiko Gilmore, who is right now the interim city manager to replace Brian Platt. You have Mario Vasquez and then Patrick Klein. They all work for or have worked for the city of Kansas City, Missouri. And they're all the finalists to replace Brian Platt. And this is a big job in Kansas City. Like it's a huge job. You got the World Cup coming next year. This is a job that matters. This is the person that's in charge of, making sure your trash is picked up on time, your snow's removed, potholes are filled, street lights, all these different things. It's not sexy if it's done well, but it's an important job. Economic development, getting things done downtown and elsewhere around Kansas City, it's a big job. And it matters a lot for the success of this town. And I heard some of these answers over the last 24 hours, and it was just really bad. Really bad. There was one moment in particular where both of the front runners, and right now, from what I'm hearing, Kimiko Gilmore is the front runner, and Mario Vasquez is in second place. Patrick Klein is just kind of there, but it's really down to Gilmore and Vasquez. You have, from what I understand, and this is just my reporting, many on city council, the black city council members who want Gilmore to be the manager. She is a black female. But a lot of people are coming around on this Vasquez guy. Now, obviously, race should not play a role in any of this. But remember, there are emails from 5 years ago when Brian Platt got the job as city manager. He's a white male. And there's an email that I've seen on record from Melissa Robinson on the city council saying that she was very upset that the city of Kansas City, Missouri hired or did not hire a black female as city manager. That was 4.5 years ago now. So that is still lingering in the background of all this. I don't much care who gets the job. I don't care what their skin color is. I want the person to be competent. I want her to be the best person for the job. And I'm telling you, based on some of what I heard in these interviews, I am very underwhelmed. Here was Kimiko Gilmore yesterday, or last week, I should say. I listened yesterday, being asked about transparency within the Kansas City, Missouri government. This is a very easy question. Let's see how she answered it.
Reform that department? Sure. Well, the first thing that you have to do is go in and do a deep dive into the structure and the organization. I would sit down with each person, leadership first, and then also all of the members of that division, and to find out exactly how they're feeling, what they've seen, and how their ideas about how to go forward. After that, like I said, and I'll just say in the communications division, we are going to, you all have asked for a audit of that division. I will take those recommendations. I will take what I heard from those folks that are in communications and review all of that to find the best possible way forward. What I would like to do is to bring in someone, a consultant that is versed in local government public information.
Oh, my gosh. That's where you
spend some money.
Yeah, we're going to hire someone else. We're going to hire a consultant on communications. I give you 4 hours of free communication consulting every day here on KCMO. Doesn't cost you a dime, as Dave Ramsey says. The advice is worth what you pay for it, which is nothing. Just support our advertisers here on KCMO. Yeah, if you are a city manager and you've got to be like, yes, I'm going to talk to everybody, and then we're going to figure out what went wrong in the communications department, and then I'm going to hire a communications consultant expert from the outside who's going to advise us on how to communicate. If you don't know how to do that basic part of the job, you cannot be the city manager. This is government gobbledygook that's being spewed there by Kamiko Gilmore. And to me, it's entirely disqualifying.
Well, those action words, I mean, I'm not interested in an interim person who has to do a deep dive. Aren't you familiar as the interim?
Yeah, well, that's a great point as well.
Typically, as the interim, you've come from within.
Yeah, you should have a leg up and say, hey, we've got problems A, B, and C. We're going full-blown transparency.
Specifics, yeah.
I will do interviews with media around Kansas City. I will make sure that I'm the point person. Stop with the whole, we're going to do an investigation of the investigation, and then we're going to go out there and we're going to hire somebody as a consultant. Government folks love their consultants.
Have that person talk to us to analyze our department and then talk to us about what we need, what the best practices are.
What the best practices are? Just tell people what's going on. You are overcomplicating the heck out of this. I mean, Kamala Harris would be proud of this word salad.
We need to build that trust with the community again. We need to build that trust with the media again. Oh. And I don't think that we are going to have a long way to go with that as long as we are open and transparent and willing to have those tough conversations and give them the time and the space and the place to give us a critical critique of what we're doing. Everything.
What was that?
The media's trust, she says.
Yeah.
What, they're not printing your press release verbatim now? They're actually editing it?
Yeah,
Come on.
Asking some follow-ups. This is absurd. So that was Kamiko Gilmore. She's the front runner to be the next city manager. Her interview from last week at City Hall. Mario Vasquez, who I keep wanting to call Mario Lopez. I'm not going to do it, though. Mario Vasquez, who, from what I'm hearing behind the scenes, actually did very well in his one-on-one interviews with members of the city council. A lot of people are starting to like him. He was very nervous in his interview. And he was asked the same question. Hey, transparency at the city level, what are you going to do about it?
But how would you work to reform a city department that has lost public trust, and we know specifically the challenges that we have right now? How would you work to reform and rebuild public trust for the city?
Well, I think we need to set up expectations. For one, the number one role of communications is to provide truthful and accurate information about what's going on with the city, whatever that might be. I know there are times where the news that we have to deliver may not be the news that we want to deliver, but that is what it is. And we cannot hide from it. We cannot, the cover-up is worse than the lie.
All right, good. Stop now.
So
Stop.
You cannot hide from those things. You need to present them for what they are. But also maybe explain how we got there.
No.
What conditions, what factors led us to the position in which we're in. Acknowledge that we had made a mistake.
Okay.
Okay,
I'm done. Guys, you're not getting paid by the word here. Okay? Just say we need to be fully transparent. I will be the point person for all communications in and out of the department. Yes, we'll have, communications people. I will work directly with them. We will go all in on transparency on behalf of the city manager's office, and we will bring the trust back to the people. Whether it's BS or not, it's a 25-second answer. That's it. Stop with the word salads. I mean, even Kamala's out there like, whoa, take it easy there. It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day. This is not what you want to be hearing from your people who are potentially going to be one of your faces of the city. Remember, most people will probably know the name and maybe the face of the city manager ahead of most of the people on city council. They'll know the mayor, but after that, like Troy Schulte for years in Kansas City, Brian Platt, very, known in the news scene. He's on TV all the time, radio, doing all that stuff. Most people could not pick the majority of the city council out of a lineup. They will know the mayor and they will know the city manager. And that's why you got to have somebody who can put together a couple of sentences and sound like they know what they're talking about. Mark, go ahead. You're on KCMO.
Yes, Pete. Tamika sounds a lot like Sharice Davids in her debate with Kevin Yoder. When she was asked a question, Sharice would say, "Thank you for that question." And then she's thinking the whole time what her answer is going to be.
Yeah.
So,
that's a good point there, Mark.
The same coach.
So they're both going to the school of Kamala Harris wordsmithing, huh?
That's true. That's there.
Thank you, Mark. There is a little bit of that going on. There's very few people who can do what like Quentin Lucas does, and, Obama did it very well. And that is say a lot of nothing at times, but sound really good doing it. And it's a skill. It's an art. And when you hear those who are really good at it do it, you're like, okay, that meant nothing, but it sounded good. And people that aren't good, it's very obvious when they have no skill in that department. And my message to them is a simple one. Less is more. Less is more. But I'll be finding out more this week on where the city manager race stands. But I'm telling you, there is a push inside for Kimiko Gilmore. But Mario Vasquez is coming on strong. 913-408-7957. Our studio line and our text line on KCMO Talk Radio. Kevin Keatsman Uncanceled is coming up on 95.7 FM. Kansas City is where Ryan's hanging out. Go ahead, Ryan.
Hey, Pete. I think Kimiko needs to bring in Bill Lumberg and get the Bobs in.
Let's get Lumberg in from Office Space. I like it. Well done there, Ryan. That's outstanding. You nailed it, buddy. You get an Office Space reference on the show, and you go to the top of the list. Although our caller of the day, based on the rules, cannot come after 9 a.m. If not, Ryan would be in a very good spot. Nice job there, buddy. Very nice job. We'll get to our caller of the day in 15 minutes on KCMO Talk Radio. Do not miss that. Coming up next, electric scooters. How bad is it in parts of Kansas City? What issues are you noticing with these electric scooters? We'll get to it on 95.7 FM. We're always streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. And, of course, if you miss anything from the show, you can find it on the podcast, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. The electric scooter drama is next. The blind squirrel finds the nut once in a while. Kansas City Star letter to the editor from yesterday. Electric scooters continue to defy Kansas City bans. Pedestrians expect protection. This town can't protect people from much more violent crimes. So what makes you think that they're going to protect people from electric scooters being on sidewalks? But anyway, the letter from Isaac in Kansas City reads here, Kansas City sidewalks are under siege by electric scooters, and it's past time for serious enforcement. Despite ordinance number blah, 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 which bans motorized scooter use on sidewalks, downtown pedestrians face daily threats from riders ignoring the law. This is not a minor nuisance. It's a public safety crisis. In the Power and Light District, River Market and Crossroads, scooters speed past pedestrians, creating constant near misses and leaving vulnerable people at risk, children, older adults, and people with disabilities. One serious injury is one too many. Warnings and gentle reminders are no longer enough, writes Isaac. The city must immediately increase citations for sidewalk violations, require scooter companies to use technology-based no sidewalk riding features, and even consider impounding scooters for repeat offenses. Other cities have acted boldly to protect pedestrians. Kansas City should be no different. Isaac goes on the right. Our downtown renaissance depends on safe, welcoming streets, not on sidewalks turned into dangerous obstacle courses. Let's enforce our laws and put pedestrians first. I agree with Isaac. I would be curious to know where Isaac was the last few years when, like in the summer of 2020, the Kansas City, Missouri City Council voted to make sure that the charges that were handed down towards those individuals who broke the law during the George Floyd protests were basically wiped clean. Those charges were dropped, not by a judge, not by anybody in law enforcement, but by a vote of the Kansas City, Missouri City Council because, well, they didn't like the charges because they were sympathetic to the cause. That moment in time, 5 years later, we're still paying for. We are paying for it in very serious ways, like record levels of homicides the last couple of years in Kansas City. We are paying for it with increases in property crimes. Just look at Waldo, Exhibit A last week, where they had, people firing guns in the side of homes as they were trying to steal vehicles. You've seen it when it comes to law enforcement resigning at record rates in this town, down 400 cops from where we need to be. You've seen it in just petty theft down on the plaza. I was talking to somebody whose daughter is a manager down on the plaza, and he said in his 25 years in this town, didn't grow up here, but he's worked here for a long time. He's never seen it like this. And he says the stories that she comes back with, he's concerned for her well-being being down there as a manager on the plaza. That's how bad it is. And yes, that will filter on down to sideshows and guys in ATVs running over cops. And yes, guys in scooters on the sidewalks. When you set the precedent that we will not enforce the law, and that's what this town did for a period of time, it doesn't go back to the way it was overnight. There's a lot of tentacles that come out of that result in more crime in Kansas City in this case. And sometimes that's really violent crime, and sometimes that's, hey, I'm on a scooter, and I know I can't be on the sidewalk, but I don't really care. And Kansas City doesn't have the cops anyway to do scooter enforcement, never mind serious violent criminal enforcement. So I agree with this reader and this letter to the Kansas City Star. I totally agree with it. But I will just say, some of us warned you. I hate to say I told you so, and it wasn't just me, but we told you so. And now this is kind of nonsense that too many people in Kansas City have to deal with.